Reducing dairy farming through the rise of precision fermented milk, plant-based dairy alternatives, and new food technologies invites a broader and surprisingly hopeful conversation about how halacha might evolve in response to changing realities. Rather than threatening established norms, these shifts allow Jewish law to re-examine long-standing ethical principles, especially tsayar b'alei, in a more empowered and scientifically informed way. What emerges is a vision in which halacha can support compassion for animals, maintain economic stability, and reinforce communal responsibility, all without compromising cherished traditions. At the center of this discussion is the halakhic principle that prohibits causing unnecessary pain to animals. Classical dairy farming was historically small-scale, often integrated into family life, and far gentler than today's intensive systems. Industrial production, however, introduces conditions such as confinement, early calf separation, repetitive mechanical milking, and selective breeding that prioritizes output over comfort. While these practices do not inherently violate kashrut, many halakhic authorities acknowledge the tension they create with tsayar b'alei. If emerging technologies allow Jewish communities to rely less heavily on systems that strain this ethical boundary, that reduction can be seen as aligning more closely with the Torah's underlying moral sensitivities. Precision fermentation is especially promising because it produces real milk proteins without involving cows in daily production. The halakhic conversation becomes more encouraging, not less, when one recognizes that the Torah does not prescribe suffering as a necessary part of dairy consumption. Once milk proteins can be produced without an animal at all, communities have a rare chance to fulfill the overarching spirit of compassion embedded in Jewish law while still enjoying foods that look, taste, and behave like traditional dairy. In this way, the technology strengthens halakhic consistency by reducing the need to navigate ethically complicated farming practices that earlier generations simply could not avoid. Economically, the shift away from large-scale dairy farming does raise concerns, especially within kosher industries that rely on milk-based products, cheese plants, supervised dairies, distribution chains, and regional agricultural economies. Yet even here the outlook can remain optimistic. Historically, Jewish communities have adapted successfully to technological transitions, whether it was moving from animal rennet to microbial rennet, from hand-milked cows to automated milking systems, or from small bakeries to modern industrial kosher facilities. Precision fermentation represents another such transition, and it can create new economic opportunities. Supervisory roles in biotech facilities, partnerships between kashrut agencies and scientific labs, and entirely new product lines that serve both kosher consumers and the general market. Farmers themselves may shift into growing feedstock crops or participating in controlled environment agriculture used to support fermentation ingredients. With thoughtful communal planning, economic disruption becomes manageable and may even support growth. Communal responsibility broadens the picture further. Halacha has never been solely about what is technically permitted. It also concerns fostering a community that lives out its values. Reducing harm to animals, creating more sustainable food systems, and using resources wisely all resonate with Jewish teachings such as Bal Tashet, avoiding waste, and Yishuv Ha'olam, sustaining the world. When a community can choose foods that minimize environmental impact and reduce animal suffering without forfeiting halakhic integrity, that choice reflects not only legal correctness, but also ethical leadership. Schools, synagogues, and kosher establishments may eventually serve precision-fermented dairy as a way of expressing these values, a gentle, positive shift rather than a break from tradition. There is also a social dimension worth appreciating. As dairy alternatives improve, they can make kosher observance easier for those who must avoid lactose or dairy allergens, thereby enhancing inclusion. They can also reduce the cost of kosher dairy products in places where importing supervised milk is expensive. The communal benefits extend outward. Less reliance on livestock can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, and land degradation, all of which align with the halakhic ideal of preserving creation for future generations. In this sense, adopting new dairy technologies becomes not just economically practical, but spiritually resonant. Ultimately, reducing traditional dairy farming does not overturn halakhic priorities, it illuminates them. The deeper principles of Jewish law have always valued compassion, sustainability, fairness, and communal well-being. Technologies that remove animal suffering while providing kosher-appropriate foods do not weaken halacha. they create opportunities to express its values more fully. Instead of viewing the decline of dairy farming as a threat, Jewish communities can see it as a chance to harmonize ancient teachings with modern possibilities, reinforcing the idea that Halacha thrives not by resisting change, but by guiding communities through it with wisdom, empathy, and confidence.